So you do want me to say it?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I'll say it.
It already started.
It's kind of like a TV program in a sense.
Okay, no problem.
That's why.
Oh, sorry guys. You dropped the phone. Y'all like my hair? It's cute. It's different. Like I was like platinum. Like yeah, let's do it. Oh. I got this. So he said I got this storm thing going on. I guess that's why I'm knocking down everything. You sure that's heavy enough to hold it?
I guess.
So give us a second. Get something to. Here, help me out. My arm's kind of like just a bad arm. Okay. Yeah. All right. Can y'all see me good? All right, Quay. What's going on? Just one little tap and knock it over. Like, that's crazy. And you know I like to tap, y'all. I'm sorry. Like, don't kill me. Maybe I should, like, get this and start it over since I'm dropping it like 100 times. But I'm not going to do that. It's live. Beep. I'm supposed to say beep happens. Okay. 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 Hello, everyone, and welcome to GDS Radio, presented by Lit TV. And I'm your host, Crystal Nicole. So, cut. Am I saying it wrong or right?
gdss Radio presents.
G, D as in dog, S, S, Radio presents
Lit TV.
Lit TV. That's I said it right.
You
Okay.
did?
Okay.
Everybody.
Okay. Yeah, I said it right. Lit TV.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. So, sorry. I'm gonna have to get some more water in a few minutes. Anyway, so, all right. Hello and welcome to GDSS Radio presents Lit TV, presented by Lit TV. I'm your host, Crystal Nicole, and we're interviewing
Jamal
a gentleman
Dramey?
today. Yes, Jamal
Dramey.
Dramey. And Dramey, that's an interesting name. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But we're
Not
going to
a
be
problem.
discussing his book, Life, Balance, and Abundance. And we're going to be talking about that and how his book can help your life to be more balanced and abundant. Right, Jamal?
Thank you very much. I'm happy to talk about it. It's a book that is very personal.
Right.
It's a book on ideas,
Uh-huh.
but it's mostly from experience, and some of it from aspiration, and some of the things are part of what I've observed is observational. And so I had these are the 3 points of view that I approach my writing from my personal experience and some of the things I aspire to, and some of the things that I've observed and experimented with at times as well.
Okay, so the back of the book synopsis, basically, this book is a companion. It reads, this book is a companion for those that aspire to be free from a life of want, worry, and despair, to a life of...
Yes, it's a practical book.
Right.
It's a book we take you from different stages, which is to just try to simplify your life and not look at life as a challenge. You can look at life as a challenge, but not as a struggle.
Right.
In life, you need to exert effort in the things that you want to achieve. Into your dreams, you have to invest into your dreams.
Yes,
but you
that's
can
very
do
true.
it and put in massive effort without turning that effort into a compulsive struggle.
Right.
Because when you attach emotions to the efforts that you exert and the things that you do, then it becomes a struggle.
Right.
And so you never really get to enjoy the whole process, and then you don't necessarily turn your experience into useful knowledge that you can use for yourself, and then you can use to help other people.
And that was a very strong statement you just said, because you said when you attach emotions to your struggle,
To your efforts, then it becomes a struggle.
Becomes a struggle.
Yes.
That's very emotional and very powerful, because as an entrepreneur myself, it's been where I'm like, oh, poor me, like they just won't let me make it because I'm a black woman and I'm young. No one won't help me, and I was angry and frustrated from that. And then I started to tell myself, okay, benefit from that. Learn what you can from that. See what you can gain as you maneuver around that situation. So that's very key.
Yeah, and one of the things is when you going through the challenges in life, you want to look at it as an experience. You want to be, sometimes you want to step outside of yourself and observe yourself and be an observer of yourself. Because of what I've learned is no matter what you go through, if you started being an observer of yourself, of your own emotions, then those emotions lose their power.
Right.
They would like, if you're angry, and for example, if you're really upset, and then you say to yourself, okay, I'm upset. Now let me think about, why am I upset? How does it feel to be upset? Why do I need to be upset? And that if I'm upset, I'm doing more harm to myself than helping myself.
Right.
Because anytime you're upset, your body produces chemicals that are harmful to yourself.
Right.
Because your body releases neuropeptides when you are based on what kind of emotions that you have. So when you upset, your body releases stress hormones, which are harmful to you. And then when you're excited, it releases something like an endorphin, which are really good for your health. So anytime you're in a bad emotional state, you always want to examine yourself and recalibrate things and understand that, okay, if I allow this emotion to continue, then I'm doing harm to myself. Because every emotion have a purpose in our lives. Every emotion have a purpose. But the problem is if you perpetuate negative emotions, because of when you have a bad feeling, it would it gives you the impulse to take action. So which is good. But when you perpetuate that bad feeling, then it becomes bad for you. Right. So it's a balancing act.
So the balance in the act, because I really believe what you just said in reference to taking a look at yourself outside of yourself. Because like even coming here tonight, I thought about the situation that we had earlier, and I was like, okay, if I go, then I looked at myself like, how would that look? If I didn't go, I looked at how would that look, and I liked the way it looked and how I looked and how I felt when I showed up. So I showed up.
Yeah.
In regards of me not showing up. So that's really true as an entrepreneur. Many times, and I never even thought about that till you said it just now, that many times I have done that, step back out of the body experience and like thought about my situation and actually pictured myself doing that or not doing that and deciding if I should or shouldn't based on me actually having that image. So that's like really deep, Jamal.
Thank you.
So already we haven't even gotten into the book. And he's already deep. Like so this book is real. You hear the man speak. So I'm gonna just opened it. So, because when I opened it, I was like, oh my God, words was just hitting me and just like, it was just like so exciting. So I was like, I'm taking notes. So tell us a little bit about what the book means to you.
Yeah, the book, it's sort of a legacy. I'm writing a lot of books. I'm writing several other books, and I've completed 3 other manuscripts. besides this one that I've published. But I wrote the book because there was a day that I sat down and I thought to myself, if today were to be my last day, what would I leave behind?
Right.
And then I reflected on that. I said, I have a lot of things that I want to communicate to posterity, to my progenies, or to friends, to family, to anybody that cares. You know, I feel like I have a lot of positive things, and even though I'm still young, but I have quite a bit of experience that I do wanted to share with people.
Right.
And then when I thought of that, if this were my last day, what would I want to leave behind?
Right.
And that's how I came up with the idea to write that down. So I just started writing as an essay. It wasn't a solid idea that it was going to be a book at the time. So it wasn't a solid idea to become a book at the time. But as I write one essay, and the first one was the compensation, because I strongly believe that there is no cheating in life, and
Right.
life is always justly ordered. So that was the first chapter I wrote, and it becomes chapter 2 of the book. I always believe that life is always reciprocal. Whatever you give, you get back.
I believe that.
So there is no cheating, because the universe is governed by eternal laws.
Okay, so before we break down chapter 6,
Mhm.
a little bit of it, because you got to get the book to get the real deal. I want to thank everybody who's watching us live now on Facebook, both his page and mine.
And everybody watching us
and
on
watching us
on YouTube and on the
Hi,
streaming,
thanks
the
for
radio.
streaming and all that
Thank
great,
you all for
awesome
tuning in. Everyone on the radio station,
Yes.
and then the YouTube streaming as well. Thank you all on the internet TV as well. Thank you all for your time.
So on the first chapter, I just want to read the first sentence. Be simple and childlike, but not childish.
Yes, because the life of a child is very beautiful.
It is.
Because what happened with children, they usually don't hold grudge when
Right.
they're young. When something happened, they experience it, and then they move on,
That's true.
and they go to the next thing. But as we get older, we start to hold grudges. When we get upset, we carry that anger with us,
Right.
even though we're not suffering the pain that got us upset to begin with, but then
Right.
we continue to perpetuate it. So the first thing, my first message was to get the reader into that space to recalibrate oneself, to get in that zone where you're not taking life as a burden, as a big struggle and a heavy load on yourself.
Right.
To exert an effort, not to be childish with life, but to be childlike, to be lighthearted. So that's the first message, to get in that neutral zone, and to approach life with some simplicity.
And one thing I see, you say, it's a quote you have here. It says, "Great" by Eleanor Roosevelt.
Yes.
It says, "Great minds discuss ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Average minds discuss events. Small minds discuss people." Why did you feel like that was a quote that needed to be in your book and at this chapter?
That was that quote by Eleanor Roosevelt really hit me hard, because life is a conversation.
It is.
We are always talking, we are always communicating, whether we do so by words, or we do so by the body language, or we do so by the actions we take. We are always communicating, we are always in a conversation. So if you look at people that are happy with their lives, they usually spend more time discussing ideas, discussing things that would make their lives better, discussing things that would make humanity, better, make the world a better place, make the world a more peaceful place, allow people to be more open, to be open-minded,
Right.
in dealing with other people. So when you start focusing more on ideas, on principle, on bigger things,
Right.
then these small things don't bother you anymore. But then if you cannot do that, people that don't do that, they usually talk more about events. So when you concentrate too much on about events, you can usually be in a, you might not, your life might not be as miserable, but you probably wouldn't be able to accomplish as much as you possibly
Right.
can, because and then the worst is to focus on talking about people,
Right.
because there's only so much you can say about people without slandering them or saying something that is bad or saying something that is mean. And so to avoid talking about people, free your mind to focus on bigger things.
Right.
So that's why it's always good not to, spend too much time gossiping,
Right.
backbiting or slandering or talking about this person or that person, because that would free the mind to talk about ideas and better things in life.
Now, another statement you have here you say, do excuse me, self analysis or honest self evaluations. This is the best way to increase your awareness and your efficiency. Now, before you answer, a lot of people don't take that into consideration to actually say, okay, this year I did this or I did that, or just to say this month, let's go back. Let me go back to see what was what. And I do think that's very important. And, I'm not one to celebrate the Sabbath, which I do celebrate the Sabbath in my mind, but I don't physically do it because I work on Saturdays and things, far as what the Sabbath, consider, the Sabbath. But far as the Sabbath goes, it's a day of self-evaluation. And that's really what God wanted you to do on the Sabbath day, to help others, but sit and look back at what you did for the week.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? To see what good, did you do any good this week? That's what Saturday was set for. But, so for you to say that, that's an amazing, like, this book is really inspirational, and I haven't even completed all of it, but I'm almost done, y'all.
Yeah, what I said was it is important to self-evaluate. And then the best way to start evaluating yourself is to do it like on a daily basis. At night, you can always reflect on your day,
Right.
how best you've used your time. Not to be remorseful about it, but to really see if there is something that you learn of value that you can apply the next day.
Right.
So the more frequently you can evaluate yourself, the easier it is for you to be able to self-criticize, not to be bitter or angry at yourself, but to just look at it as an experience, and I'm able to acquire this knowledge here that I can apply tomorrow.
Right.
So you should do it daily, and then do it also, evaluate your week, see what goals you've set up. But in order to evaluate, you always have to set up a metrics by which you measure yourself. Like if you plan your day ahead, I want to do this 1, 2, 3, and 4. End of the day, you want to go back and see, have you accomplished all those?
Right.
And then how can I do better tomorrow? And then you evaluate your weeks the same way. And then you can also evaluate yourself monthly, and you can also evaluate yourself annually, or biannually. Just all of those give you the opportunity to reassess yourself.
Right.
And then if you're having shortcomings and you're struggling, whether this is professionally or socially, your relationship with people, or it's just morally, you can evaluate yourself and take actions. Because when you don't have a metrics to measure, then you don't know what steps you should take to remedy the problems.
Right. And I remember, like, starting off my journey into the woman I am today, I used to write, like, I probably messed up so many tablets and paper, just writing down, like, my everyday. Like, I would write down everything I did everything I wanted to do. And then I would write down everything that I did for that day. And then at the end of the week, I would go back through that book to see what I did and what I did not do, to try my best to complete those things. Because I know if I got behind on those things, then the other things that needed to be done, it will become clutter. And therefore, I won't be able to do things. So it's very important to be able to evaluate yourself and to because to check yourself, because you don't want to get behind on things, because if you're moving forward to achieve a goal, it's those small things that you knock down that
Yes.
will get you to that next step. So you want to be able to self-evaluate yourself, and I did that a lot. Like, I put it in my computer. I said, this is where I want to be. This is what I want to do. And I thank God that I'm actually on track. So I think that's very important. Now, I want to go back into letting you guys know that you are listening to gdss Radio, presented by Lit TV. And I'm your host, Crystal Nicole, and we are interviewing Jamal Drame, and we are talking about his book, Life, Balance, and Abundance. So, Jamal, tell the people where they can go purchase the book. Like, right now, you already learned so much about the book. You see how, inspiring it is already. And we're just talking about chapter 2. So this is your opportunity now, while you're watching this, where you can actually, while you're still listening to the interview, go to the website and purchase the book, right, Jamal?
Yeah, it's available on Barnes & Nobles, Amazon, Google Books, Nooks, my website as well, jamaldrami.com, and the publisher, Balbao. So it's available worldwide in the United States, Europe, Japan, Asia. So it's easy to purchase, whether it's the ebook version or the hard copy. It's pretty easy to purchase, but I like buying from Amazon. It's really convenient, and they're very dependable too on the delivery time as well.
Great. All right, so let's get back into this book on life, balance, and abundance. I'm a Libra.
Mm-hmm.
So for me to be here with you, holding a book in my hand about life, balance, and abundance, it's like that's my whole spirit. That's my whole life. That's what a Libra lives for, life and balance. And without balance, we are so unequal. So I'm just so drawn to this situation. It's amazing. So, compensation, chapter 2. Free will is therefore the fulfillment of destiny by means of thought, actions, and prayers we freely engage in. God doesn't change the condition of people until they change what's within them. And that's a quote by who?
That's a quote from the Quran.
Quran.
Yes, because a lot of time people always misunderstand what is destiny or what is free will.
Okay.
Because people that usually engage in the debate of if life is a matter of simply a manifest destiny, usually take a simplistic approach.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, the ones that take the approach of life is a total free will also oversimplify things. So it is more sophisticated than that, because of in the universe, the fourth law of the universe of creation is justice. It's called haq in Arabic, which is the fourth law of the universe, justice.
Uh-huh.
So everything bends towards justice. So, but there is universal laws which
Right.
maintain this system of justice
Absolutely.
and make it absolute. So a person would have the free will to take the actions, all right?
Mm-hmm.
And then that action would reconcile with their destiny through that phenomenon of eternal justice. So the two seem divergent, but they're actually convergent, and they're held together by that perfect law. We never trade good for evil or evil for good.
Right.
For whatever you do good, it would be reciprocated by what is good. And if you do evil, it would equally be reciprocated by evil.
Right.
So, but then you have the choice to act in free will, and then that free will would be paid by your destiny. So whatever you do as a matter of that you engage freely in, it's actually fulfilling your destiny. And so it is not contradictory. They are almost two parts of the same phenomenon.
Two parts.
So it's almost like, and this exists in almost every part of life.
Right.
For example, if you see the gravity. It has the centripetal and the centrifugal forces.
Okay.
Which seems to be opposing forces, but actually is one unified force field. So the centripetal seem to be pulling away, and the centrifugal is pulling in.
Right.
But it's still the same phenomenon, and it's all the action of the gravity. And then you observe the same phenomenon in the negative, in the polar opposites, of everything that you experience in life. Everything coming in two parts.
It does.
And then they might seem to be opposing,
Right.
when they're actually the same thing. Like an example is like if you see if you have a cup,
Right.
an empty cup, the plastic that you build the cup with, it's what make it worth something, because you built something. But the usefulness comes from the space in the cup,
Right.
because without that space, you
Right.
cannot use the cup.
Cup is useless.
So yes, so the empty space and the plastic that you have are opposite, but the two serve the same purpose. You have the plastic, which brings the benefit, but then the space brings the usefulness.
Right.
Like this, if you build a building, you build the blocks, the structures, and everything else that you put in the building, the house and the chairs. But the house is only useful because you have a space,
Right.
empty space that people can walk in and stay in that room.
Right.
So a lot of the phenomenon in the universe are pretty consistent with this concept.
Right.
But a lot of times when we look at the one end of the concept, then we look at the other end as opposite, and the two are irreconcilable.
Wow. So I'm actually putting here on the comment questions, anyone, and wish you can always email them later on any questions they may have.
Yes, I'll be happy to answer any questions. My email is jamaldrami@gmail.com, jamaldrami@icloud.com. So you can email me any questions that you have, and I'll be happy to answer it.
Right. Wow. Thank you so much. So that's really kind of you to just be, open to communicate with your readers. That's a unique concept.
Yeah, the whole point of writing a book is to benefit. So that's the main purpose. So I try to engage as much as I can for readers that are interested or that have questions or that want to just sit down and talk. I usually try to make myself available, or sometimes when I get letters, I try to reply and as quickly as possible. So.
Okay, so I'm going to skip over to what chapter? Let's see, what chapter am I skipping over to? Or am I still in chapter 1? Yeah. Below are some examples of thoughts that, when become habitual, can be led to certain corresponding of life results of circumstances. So, when you say
Yeah.
these are examples, and then I'm just gonna read
Yes.
the title. We just go
That
through
is
it
the
and
that is the yeah I that's the third chapter of the book, which is I talk about habituation.
Okay.
Because everything begins with your thought, your thinking. Most of the time, what you think would impel you to action. Because your thinking determines your mood. Like if you think good thoughts, then you become happy.
Right.
If you think really bad thoughts, sad thoughts, then you
Right.
become sad.
Right.
So your thinking determines your mood.
Your
So-
thinking
so-
determines your mood.
And your thinking is the beginning of action, because before
Right.
you do something, usually you think about
Think
it.
about it, which
So-
is considered.
Yes, so that is why it's very important to observe your thinking.
Right.
Because once you observe your thinking, then you are more likely to control your emotions, your feelings, because you can determine, I don't want to think bad thoughts,
Right.
because it's going to make me send me into a bad mood.
If you do think something, because we all have thousands of millions of thoughts a day. And if you do think something negative or bad, yourself can come to you and say, no, don't do that. That's the consequences would be this, that, and the third,
Yeah, that is thought observation. That be mindful of your thought.
Right.
If you start catching yourself thinking, it's very effective. If you can observe your thoughts,
Right.
like when you're thinking and then you kind of sat back and say, hey, what am I thinking and why am I thinking this?
Right.
And why do I have to think this?
Right.
Because a lot of time, the bad thoughts that we think or the sad thoughts that we think, the thinking itself doesn't solve any problem. But then we continue to recycle the same thought, because we
Right.
recycle more than 80% of our thoughts every day. So 80% of what you were thinking yesterday, more than 80%,
It's still
you
on my
continue
mind.
you
Ugh,
continue
don't
to
like it.
you continue to think the same thing the next day, and then the next day, and then the next
Wow.
day. But once you learn to observe your thinking,
Right.
then you begin to say, hey, maybe this thinking is not necessary, because
Right.
every time I think of it, it makes me sad.
Right.
And then one of the ways to avoid that is to introduce yourself to new materials, to read stuff that are positive, to
Right.
watch videos that are positive, to associate with people that are positive,
Right.
to avoid things that are negative, to
Right.
avoid negative people, to avoid negative conversation, to avoid quarreling, to avoid fightings, and then try to be, at peace with yourself and engage more in observing your thought. Because if most of the thought that you think all the time are negative, most likely it's going to push you to act in a negative manner. But then if most of your thoughts are positive, you are
right.
more likely to take positive steps in your life.
Even if you have a negative thought, you will probably take a positive. It's like if I said, someone dropped, that guy
Yeah,
dropped $1, I can just
Yeah,
slide
just-
it under my foot.
Yeah,
you would
just
never know.
you would think
But-
negative at times, but you just have to make sure that your dominant thoughts are positive.
Right.
Because what dominates is what's going to drive,
Right.
be
But
the
you're a good
fundamental
person, be like,
driver
I'm
in
not
life.
that person. I volunteer. I go to church. I believe in God. I'm giving him his $1 back. Here, sir, you dropped your $1. Basically, that's what he's basically saying. So that's really a good concept of how you put that. So honest and pure thoughts, keep and forgiving thoughts, kind and forgiving thoughts, loving and compassionate thoughts, curious and inquiring thoughts, shapes a person to have eager, intelligent. Elaborate on that.
Okay, curious and inquiring thoughts. Because if you engage more in thinking about things that you want to understand, that you want to know more about, and then you follow your interest. If something concerns you, if something you have interest in, and then you think about it persistently, then you will be driven to study more about that.
Right.
So usually, if somebody is very curious and they generate thoughts of curiosity, they usually would do a lot of research. They would pursue any if they come across new information and it interests them, they would like to dig deeper into it. So I was just elaborating about different modes of thinking,
Okay.
and then the kind of person it formulates. So that's what those were about.
Careless and insensitive thoughts. Set foundation for ignorance and promotes injury and injustice. Foster envy and jealousy. Lead to unclean life and to poor health and wasteful life. Self-doubting thoughts. Now, most people, and that's what's one of my things as far as, being a young entrepreneur. I have self-sabotaged myself before. So being an entrepreneur, having self-doubt and letting other people put doubt on me created a situation where, you know, I just didn't believe, and I didn't want to believe because nobody else wanted to believe, but it was so strong in me that I had to believe, and regardless of who believed, I believed. So
That furthermore, it's just elaborating. So when you think certain thoughts, you understand the consequence of the thoughts.
Right.
Because I figure, right, if I write about the different modes of thinking that we normally in, and then you understand the consequence of that thinking, then you will be able to observe yourself when you're making those thoughts. Because
Right.
then if you're thinking hateful thought, then you thought to yourself, oh man, if I think of hateful thoughts, I'm going to end up being a better person, and
Right.
I'll be more prone to diseases in my old age, probably developing ulcers or cancers.
Right.
Then you're more likely to take a step back. I like this quote by Mark Twain, where he says that anger is like an acid that does more harm to the vessel in which it travels than anything it is poured on. So like if you're angry or you're bitter or you're resentful about what somebody else did to you, or what bad experience you've been through, or somebody wronged you,
right.
it's true. You might have the righteous indignation for that anger. It might be justified, but nevertheless, the consequences are more harmful to you if you continue to be resentful or
Right.
to be angry at that person. And so the best way for you to heal yourself is learn to forgive.
Right.
Even though somebody wronged you, you're doing yourself a favor by forgiving that person, because
Absolutely.
then that feeling of resentment, that anger, that bitterness, and the consequences, the toll it can take on you, on your health, you will relieve yourself from those. So you're doing your favor not only for that person, so that's why it's really important to observe, how you think, and then to self-observe, and then to take action based on those.
And the next one was selfish thoughts, angry thoughts, confusing thoughts, suspicious thoughts, arrogant thoughts, fearful thoughts, greedy thoughts.
Yes, those are all different thought processes
Right.
that we engage in, and just that way, I try to cover all the different thought
Those are a
processes
lot
we
of
generally go
different-
through.
Different thought
Yes.
processes.
So,
Fearful, greedy, arrogant, suspicious, confusing, angry. That's just one page.
Yes.
Go over to the next, it's a bunch more. So those are a lot of emotions that we deal with on a day basis. Now, another thing that stuck out to me in your book was this statement: the belief that our pain and misfortunes are the results of actions of others is ever imprisoning us in a dormant misery. This false belief is the reason for most resentment and slander. Many people believe that it is due to doing others they experience misfortune.
Yes, one of the first things is you have to understand that everything you go through, it is part of your journey.
Right.
And then nothing that happens to you is solely the responsibility of somebody else. That like we were talking about at the beginning of the conversation about the reciprocity of the life. I'm just putting more emphasis on that idea.
Now, perception.
Yes, perception. This is the centerpiece of human experience, because of life has two parts. It has reality
Right.
and it has perception. So that if you want to be you cannot be absolute, you cannot base your life absolutely on perception, or be totally negligent of
Right.
perception.
Right.
Or neither can you just say, I'm just gonna take what appeals to me, what is real to my experience,
Right.
as the absolute truth. Because the thing is, your perception is your reality,
Right.
but somebody else's perception is their reality. So
So that's like when people say, like somebody say, "Oh, you're gonna write that book. You're living in a crowd. You're gonna write that book. You're living in the clouds. You're dreaming. You'll never do that. Who writes a book?"
Yeah, exactly.
be
That's
a
that's that's
genius
that's
to
a
do
good
that.
that's a good example because you have critics. You're gonna have people that would not like you probably for no reason at all, and some would not like you for maybe for their own reason.
Right.
But in general, once you learn to understand that everybody have their own unique perception to life and to different life experiences and to events, then you can become more acceptable to what their experiences is because everybody act from their point of view.
Right.
You know, like it might sound simple if you see somebody doing something that is wrong or something that is abhorrent, and you can say, "Man, how can this person do this? This is wrong. I mean,
Right.
it's blatantly wrong." But if you can also understand that in his best judgment, based on his experience,
Right.
probably his level of education, probably the society that he grew up in, probably
Right.
his culture, if you put all those factors together, at that moment, he's perhaps doing what he thought was necessary for him.
Right.
And so, and then if you take it a step further, for example, if we observe our physical universe, if we look at this table, okay, we can look at it as a hard surface
Right.
with no holes in it that is totally solid.
Right.
All right? But then if we really examine it on a quantum level, and then we really take a powerful microscope and then like focus it on this, we would observe that the particles in this table are moving randomly. They're moving at the speed of light. They're moving really fast. And you're going to see a lot of space
Right.
between the atomic and the subatomic particles that form this table. All right? So if you break it down to that level, at a quantum level, you would observe that our reality or the solid objects are actually not very solid. They
Right.
might be because the atoms are not actually sticking together. They're actually floating around each other. They're oscillating at the speed of
Right.
light, so it appears as solid.
Right.
So I cannot say this table is not solid because I know that if I put a powerful microscope here,
Right.
it's gonna be the atomic particles gonna be all randomly moving around.
Right.
All right, I cannot, but I can have the knowledge on the quantum level that this is true, but on the physical experience, I can also observe that this is a solid table.
Right.
So it's just that balance. There's always a balance between what you observe and what is true. So you don't necessarily have to force somebody that has no knowledge of quantum mechanics to tell that person, hey, everything that you see as solid is not really solid.
Right.
They're all just subatomic particles. They're all floating around. Even your body is probably is bunch of atoms just floating around in an energy field. They might not understand it
Right.
because in their experience, it is true to their experience that their
It's
body
solid,
is solid,
right.
and everything that they see solid is solid. What is not solid is air
Right.
and there's other things. But because of somebody have a higher knowledge of quantum mechanics, he might say that is a false reality.
Right.
The real reality is when these subatomic particles are not really solid. That is the real reality. But
Right.
none of it is wrong and none of it is right.
Right.
Because in your experience, you're observing solid object. You're observing
Exactly.
real things. In their experience, because they're using this powerful microscope to observe it, and they can actually see this solid not to be absolutely solid.
Yes.
So that is kind of how perception works. So you have to kind of observe it like on that level. That okay, maybe on this item, I'm observing it from a quantum level, maybe from a higher point of view,
Right.
and somebody else would be observing on a lower point of view, and then somebody else that is probably visually impaired might not even be seeing anything at all. They might
Right.
just see a blur.
Right.
All right, or somebody that is colorblind might not see the colors.
Right.
So we all seeing it, and that's the same thing that applies in the mental sense. So just that way you can learn to be more flexible and be more accepting to people that oppose you or people that object to your ideas,
Right.
or people that you have differences with, and then you can make a more honest effort and be more empathetic, and then you can always know that you can always be wrong all the time. No matter how positive you think you are, you
Right.
should always have that reservation. There is always a possibility that you might be wrong, especially on the transient issues.
Right.
So you always have to make that reservation.
That's great. I'm excited about this book, y'all. We are listening to the GDSS radio presented by Lit TV. And I'm your host, Crystal Nicole, and we are interviewing Jamal Drummond.
Yes.
And his
And thank
book
you, everyone that's watching and
Yes.
listening to the radio. Thank you for listening.
Thank you guys for watching us and listening all over.
And
his
then
book is
we
Life, Balance,
apologize.
and
We
Abundance.
haven't set it up for calling on this interview,
Right.
but we're just gonna give you as much as we can. And also, you can always write email, and I will try to respond to your questions or anything that you wanna talk about. Or you can also follow me on Twitter. At Jamal Drami, or on Facebook. If you're already watching this on my live streaming, you're probably a friend already.
All right. That's it. All right. Well, thank you guys for watching us, and make sure you go get his book. It's amazing. I'm excited.
Thank you very much
Go get his book.
to my friends
Thanks for
and my
watching.
family, and to my wife, my daughter. Love you all. Thank you very much.